Imagine this scenario for a second. You have an absolutely incredible business idea. You secure the funding, you build out all the infrastructure, and then you decide it is time to get really serious.
Right, the fun part is starting up.
Exactly. So you spend $50,000 on a gorgeous new logo designed by some top-tier agency. You launch a breathtaking, custom-coded website. You print these ultra-premium, thick-stock business cards with the embossed lettering.
Oh, you know I love a good embossed business card.
I mean, who doesn't? So you put the logo on coffee mugs, on the side of a company van, on custom uniforms. You step back, look at your empire, and say, boom, I have built a brand.
And then reality hits.
Yeah, then you open your doors and your customers still treat you like the cheap, unreliable, generic option. You are forced to compete on price, just completely slashing your margins to survive.
It's brutal.
It really is. But what if I told you that your brand is not your logo, not your product, and completely out of your direct control? Would you think I was crazy?
Well, it's a bitter pill for a lot of founders to swallow, for sure. But today, we are unpacking the introduction to Marty Neumeier's amazing book, The Brand Gap.
Yes, we are.
And you are about to learn the true definition of a brand. We're going to see how bridging the massive chasm between cold business logic and creative magic is really the ultimate shortcut to building a sustainable competitive advantage in today's market.
I have to admit, when we first started looking into this framework, my immediate reaction was, well, defensive.
Oh, really? Why is that?
I think most of us have spent our entire professional lives operating under the assumption that if we just tweak the font on a landing page or, update the color palette of our packaging from navy blue to sage green, we are branding.
Right. We treat it as an aesthetic checklist.
Exactly. You start a company, you pay someone on the internet to draw a geometric shape for you, and you check the box. But to actually understand how value works in the modern economy, we have to clear away this brush.
We really do. You cannot build a new framework on a faulty foundation.
No, you can't. We have to violently dismantle the old misconceptions.
And the very first piece of the foundation we need to tear up is that logo myth. We have to state this categorically. A logo is not a brand.
Okay, let's unpack this, because people use those words interchangeable all the time.
They do, but the word logo is just short for logotype. It comes from the Greek word logos, which literally just means word. In the strict historical design sense, it is merely a custom-lettered word or a graphical trademark.
So whether we are talking about a complex crest or a monogram like IBM...
Or a simple, elegant symbol like the Nike swoosh, yeah. A logo is just a graphic device. It points to the brand. It acts as a signature for the brand. But it is unequivocally, fundamentally not the brand itself.
It is the flag, not the country.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And you can have a beautifully designed flag for a country that is in absolute economic and social ruin.
The flag does not fix the country.
It really doesn't. Now, the second major misconception, and this one is deeply entrenched in corporate culture, is that a brand is a corporate identity system.
Oh, man. Right. The infamous brand guidelines?
Yes, the 100-page PDF.
The one that tells you exactly how much white space needs to exist around the logo and what specific Pantone color you are legally allowed to use for the holiday party flyer.
Precisely. And if you trace the history of this back to the mid-20th century, corporate identity manuals were an absolute revolution. You had brilliant designers like Paul Rand creating these massive, thick binders for giant corporations.
Right, dictating the exact sizes, the typography, the grid systems.
Yeah, the architecture of the printed page.
Yeah.
They existed to control visual consistency at a massive scale, primarily in print. Now, don't get me wrong here.
Yeah.
Visual consistency is absolutely necessary.
Because it reduces confusion, right?
Exactly. But consistency alone does not create a brand. A perfectly consistent visual system can still be utterly, depressingly soulless.
It's like a uniform.
Yes, you can force every employee to wear the exact same uniform, but that doesn't mean they actually care about the customer.
And the third misconception, which I genuinely think is the most painful one for founders, engineers, and inventors to internalize, is that a brand is not your product.
Oh, that is the hardest realization for so many people.
It really is. Think about what happens when executives sit around a boardroom table and announce they are having a meeting about managing their brands.
If you actually listen to what they talk about for the next hour, 99% of the time, they're talking about managing their products.
Right. They were looking at sales pipelines, distribution channels, raw material costs, quality assurance metrics.
They're talking about the physical object or the specific service they provide. But managing a brand requires managing something vastly, less tangible. It is an invisible layer of meaning that surrounds the product.
Okay, let me pause you there because we need to get incredibly concrete about this.
Sure.
If I'm listening to this and I've just been told that my brand isn't my $50,000 logo, it isn't my meticulously crafted 100-page identity system, and it isn't even the revolutionary new software I spent 5 years developing,
Right.
then what on earth is it? Where does the brand actually exist?
A brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or company.
A gut feeling.
A visceral, emotional, intuitive gut feeling. And the reason it has to be defined as a gut feeling is that human beings are fundamentally emotional, intuitive creatures.
Even though we love to tell ourselves that we are highly rational.
Oh, we build elaborate spreadsheets and pros and cons lists to convince ourselves that we are making logical, data-driven decisions. But under the hood, neuroscience shows us over and over again that our decisions are driven by our emotional centers.
And our rational brain simply steps in milliseconds later to justify what the gut already decided.
Always. We buy on emotion, and we justify with logic. Furthermore, notice the phrasing of that definition. It is a person's gut feeling. Singular. That's interesting, so it's very individual.
In the end, a brand is defined by individuals. It is not defined by corporations, it is not defined by sweeping market trends, and it is not defined by some abstract concept of the general public. So every single individual who interacts with your company, whether they see a billboard, talk to a customer service rep, or use your product, they construct their own unique version of your brand inside their own head.
That is the terrifying reality. A brand is not what you say it is. It is what they say it is.
Wow. So as a CEO or a business owner, you don't actually own your brand. It doesn't sit on your servers. It lives rent-free in the neurological pathways of thousands of strangers.
Exactly. Now, you can certainly influence that gut feeling. You can design better touch points. You can communicate the qualities that make your product different. You can train your staff to be empathetic.
But you cannot dictate the feeling.
No, you cannot mandate a brand into existence. When enough individuals arrive at the same approximate gut feeling, then and only then can a company be said to possess a brand.
There is a really fascinating philosophical framework that helps explain the shared approximate understanding. It goes all the way back to Plato's concept of the Platonic ideal.
Ah, yes, the concept of hoarseness.
I love this mental exercise so much. If you and I are standing in a room and someone says the word horse, neither of us visualizes a cow.
Right, or a bicycle, or a golden retriever.
We both instantly, effortlessly visualize a large, majestic creature with 4 legs, hooves, a mane falling over a muscular neck. We get a sudden emotional impression of power, of speed, of grace.
And we intuitively know that a human being could ride on its back.
Exactly. Now, in your head, you might be picturing a massive brown Clydesdale pulling a wagon. In my head, I might be picturing a sleek white Arabian horse galloping across a desert. Our internal images are completely different in the details.
But we both share that underlying, distinct, categorical understanding of hoarseness.
Right. And this is exactly how a brand functions in the wild. It is a shared approximate understanding within a society.
When you add up all the individual parts that make a horse, the mane, the hooves, the size, the sound of the gallop, the total is distinctive enough to instantly categorize it and separate it from a zebra or a donkey.
So brand management, therefore, is fundamentally the management of differences.
But, and this is the crucial distinction, it is not the management of differences as they exist on a corporate spreadsheet or a product data sheet. It is the management of differences as they exist in the messy, emotional minds of people.
That makes perfect sense, but I want to ground this in something really visceral. It makes me think of a high school reputation.
That's a great analogy.
Think back to being a teenager. Let's say you are a 15-year-old kid entering a new high school, and you decide you want to be known as the cool, edgy, mysterious rebel.
So you execute a strategy.
You do. You go to the mall, you save up your money, and you buy a vintage, distressed leather jacket. That jacket is your logo. Then you decide you are only going to wear black boots, dark jeans, and plain white t-shirts every single day.
That is your corporate identity system. You've got the aesthetic completely locked down.
Right. You are strictly, rigorously controlling your visual consistency. But your reputation, your actual brand, is the gut feeling the other kids get when you walk into the cafeteria.
Right, because if you are wearing that incredible leather jacket, but you spend your lunch hour aggressively enforcing the rules of the debate club.
Yes. Reporting people for chewing gum and reminding the teacher that she forgot to assign homework over the weekend.
Then your brand is not cool, mysterious rebel. Your brand is uptight, annoying rule follower who happens to be wearing a leather jacket.
Exactly. You can buy the jacket, but you cannot buy the cafeteria's gut feeling.
And if you are that kid and you spend all your time at home obsessing over the exact placement of the zippers on that leather jacket or making sure the white t-shirt is exactly the right shade of white,
Obsessing over your visual assets.
while completely ignoring the actual behavioral and emotional reaction you are cultivating in your peers, you are going to fail.
That is the fundamental takeaway here for anyone trying to build a business. You have to actively pivot your obsession away from what you are projecting and toward what your customer is receiving and feeling.
Absolutely. Though I think this is where a lot of logical, hard-nosed business people start to get deeply uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure. If I'm an engineer or a finance person and I'm listening to this, I might push back.
What would you say?
I might say, wait a minute, if my brand is completely out of my control, if it's just this ephemeral gut feeling floating around in the ether of my customer's subconscious, why on earth am I paying a marketing team?
Right. Why allocate a massive budget to this?
Why not just put our heads down, make a really objectively good product, price it fairly, and let the chips fall where they may? If it's a good product, the rational market will figure it out, right?
It's a fair question, and it raises a huge historical point. The concept of a maker's mark has been around for 5,000 years. Blacksmiths put marks on swords.
So why is this sudden obsession with managing a gut feeling a matter of life and death for a modern business?
To answer that, we have to look at a massive tectonic shift in how human society operates. We have moved from an economy of mass production to an economy of mass customization.
Meaning what, exactly?
Because of this shift, our purchasing choices have exploded to a degree that the human brain was not evolved to handle. We are living in an era where we are unfathomably information-rich, but we are devastatingly time-poor.
It's so true. We have literally all the data in human history sitting in our pockets, but we don't have an extra 30 minutes to actually process any of it.
Exactly. Let's look at the historical context. In the past, the standard logical method of judging products was to compare their features and their benefits.
You would look at product A, you would look at product B, you would read the spec sheets, compare the prices, and make a rational choice.
That model worked when there were only 3 types of soap at the general store. But that rational model of comparison is entirely dead today.
Because of the sheer volume of options.
Volume is a huge part of it, yes, but it's also the speed of the market.
Mhm.
Let's say your engineering team spends 2 years developing a revolutionary new feature for your software or your physical product. In today's hyper-connected global economy, your competitors can reverse engineer and copy that new feature almost as soon as you introduce it, sometimes within weeks.
So the window of competitive advantage based on features is shrinking to zero.
Yes. Furthermore, advances in global manufacturing mean that basic quality is no longer a differentiator, it is a baseline expectation.
That is such a critical point. You don't buy a toaster wondering if it will actually toast the bread or if it's just going to sit there and do nothing. You assume as a baseline that the toaster works.
Right. You don't buy a car wondering if the engine will explode when you turn the key. Basic functionality is assumed.
So the old way of selling based on what a product has or what it does simply doesn't work when there are 50 other competitors who have the exact same features and do the exact same thing, often for slightly less money.
Let's do a thought experiment to really illustrate the absolute cognitive nightmare of this.
Let's do it.
Picture an ordinary person. Let's call him Dave. Dave wants to buy a digital camera because his kid is having a birthday party next week, and he wants some nice photos.
Okay, Dave walks into a massive big box electronics store, or he goes online to a major retailer.
According to recent market analysis, Dave is now staring down the barrel of something like 1,349 different camera models on the market.
Oh my God, 1,349. Now put yourself in Dave's shoes. How do you rationally choose?
Below the data sheets.
Right. You are now looking at sensor sizes APS-C versus full frame versus micro four thirds. You are looking at megapixel counts, ISO ranges, autofocus tracking points, lens apertures, burst rates, buffer sizes.
It's too much. If Dave actually tried to rationally, logically compare the data sheets of all those cameras to find the objectively best value for his specific use case, his brain would literally short-circuit.
It is a biological impossibility to process that much data without suffering severe choice paralysis.
It is called Hicks' law in psychology. The time and effort it takes to make a decision increases logarithmically with the number of choices.
So what happens?
Because our brains are biologically wired to protect us from cognitive overload, because burning that much mental energy was dangerous from an evolutionary standpoint, we subconsciously bypass the data sheets entirely.
We look at the wall of over 1,000 cameras, our rational brain throws its hands up in surrender, and we immediately seek out a heuristic, a shortcut.
What's fascinating here is if we can't judge a product by its features anymore, what do? We judge it by its symbolic attributes.
Meaning what, exactly? What is a symbolic attribute in the middle of an electronics aisle?
Meaning we start asking a completely different set of questions, almost entirely subconsciously. We stop asking, what is the ISO range? And we start asking, what does this product look like?
Does it look sleek and professional, or does it look cheap and plasticky?
Where is it being sold? Is it in a beautiful minimalist glass case? Or is it shoved on a dusty bottom shelf?
What kind of people buy this? What does the price tag say about how desirable it is?
And most importantly, the ultimate tribal question, which tribe will I be joining if I buy this?
The tribal aspect of modern consumption is so incredibly real. We don't like to admit it because it makes us sound superficial, but I see it all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
People don't just buy a Yeti cooler because it keeps ice cold for 3 days. A Coleman cooler does that for a fraction of the price.
Right. They buy a Yeti cooler because it signals to everyone else at the tailgate that they belong to the tribe of serious, uncompromising outdoorsmen.
We are deeply social animals. We use our purchasing power to signal our identity to others. We always have.
But the ultimate symbolic attribute, the absolute bedrock of this entire system of shortcuts, is trust in the maker.
Let's go back to Dave in the camera aisle.
Okay, Dave is paralyzed by all those options. But suddenly he sees the name Canon or Sony or Nikon printed on a camera body.
Dave doesn't need to read the spec sheet anymore.
Exactly. If Dave has a gut feeling of trust in the maker, maybe his dad used the Canon, or he associates Sony with high-end professional gear, he can buy the camera right now, save himself 3 hours of agonizing, sweat-inducing research, and go home to worry about the birthday party.
Trust becomes the ultimate shortcut to making a buying decision in an overloaded world.
That is a colossal takeaway for anyone listening to this.
If you are running a business right now and your entire marketing strategy is just shouting about your new features, we have 10% more battery life, or our software has 3 new integration tools, you have to realize that selling what a product has is a losing game.
It's a race to the bottom of the commodity barrel, where you will inevitably be undercut by someone cheaper or out-innovated by someone faster.
You have to pivot your entire worldview. You have to realize that you are actually in the business of selling trust and tribal identity. You are selling who the customer is when they use your product.
If we pull back and connect this to the broader historical picture, the evolution of marketing over the last century maps perfectly onto this psychological shift.
How so?
It started in the early 1900s with an absolute emphasis on features. The pitch was simply, here is what it has. Think of early car advertisements that just listed the horsepower and the material of the tires.
Very literal.
Right. By the 1920s and 30s, as competition grew, the pitch shifted to benefits. It became, here is what it does. It saves you time, it cleans your clothes faster.
Okay, that makes sense.
By the 1950s, and moving into the late 20th century, we entered the experience economy. The pitch became, here is what you will feel. You will feel joy. You will feel relaxed.
And today,
in the 21st century, overwhelmed by choice, we are firmly entrenched in the era of identification. The pitch is, here is who you are.
I love that progression. Features to benefits to experience to identification. It moves further and further away from the physical, tangible object and deeper into human psychology and ego.
It really does.
But I know for a fact that I can hear some of our more analytical, numbers-driven listeners pushing back right now.
I'm sure they are.
They're sitting in their cars or at their desks thinking, okay, this sociological theory about tribes and gut feelings and historical eras of marketing is all very warm and fuzzy. It's fantastic for a TED Talk or a design seminar.
But how does this actually translate to the bottom line?
Exactly. How on earth is a nebulous gut feeling a hard, calculable business asset? Show me the money.
That is the million-dollar, or more accurately, the billion-dollar question.
Right.
If we want to understand how an invisible gut feeling translates into hard currency, we actually need to look at the history of literal currency. We need to look at how money itself is just a brand.
I found this concept absolutely mind-blowing. Let's walk the listener through this step by step because it fundamentally changes how you view value.
Let's go back to right after the American Revolutionary War. The newly formed government had printed paper money to finance the war, known as Continentals.
Right, at Continentals.
Due to rampant inflation and a lack of backing, this paper money had become practically worthless. It was reduced to a 40th of its previous value. There was literally a phrase, not worth a continental.
Because the trust in the institution had collapsed, so the paper was just paper.
Exactly. So the only thing people trusted was heavy, physical gold and silver. It was tangible. You could bite it to see if it was real. You could weigh it in your hand. It had intrinsic value.
It didn't require any imagination or trust to believe that a heavy chunk of gold was valuable.
Zero brand equity required. But carrying around bags of heavy metal is incredibly inefficient for a growing economy.
Yeah, that doesn't scale well.
So the government needed people to accept paper. It took nearly 100 years of intense societal conditioning before people were truly willing to accept silver certificates as a substitute for the real thing.
And what's wild is that those early silver certificates were literally backed by physical metal sitting in a heavily guarded vault somewhere. You could theoretically walk into a bank, hand them the paper, and demand your silver back.
Yes, and even with that physical guarantee, it still required a massive psychological leap of faith to trade a heavy, tangible coin for a fragile piece of paper.
I can imagine.
But the real magic trick happened over the next 100 years. Society slowly became so conditioned to the paper, so trusting of the system, that the government could eventually transition to Federal Reserve notes.
Which is what we have now.
Right. These notes are fiat currency. They are not backed by gold reserves. They are not backed by silver reserves. They are backed by absolutely nothing tangible.
They are backed purely 100% by the collective faith in the brand called the United States of America.
Yes.
That is just wild to think about. If I pull a $20 bill out of my wallet right now, it costs practically nothing to produce. It's just a piece of woven cotton and linen with some ink on it.
Right.
The only reason I can walk into a coffee shop, hand that piece of paper to a barista, and walk out with a tangible cup of coffee and a sandwich is because the barista, the bank, the government, and I all collectively share a hallucination that this piece of paper has value.
It's the ultimate platonic ideal. We all share the gut feeling of its worth.
It is the purest example of brand equity in human history.
And the evolution of trust didn't stop with paper money. We eventually learned to trust a piece of plastic, a credit card. You swipe a piece of plastic, no physical asset changes hands, and you walk out with a television.
And now we are learning to trust international cybercurrency, which is essentially just invisible cryptographic code floating in the digital ether.
Think about the trajectory at every single historical stage. The currency itself became less tangible, and the requirement for brand trust became exponentially higher.
But how did the government get people to make that initial terrifying leap from holding solid gold to accepting a piece of paper? How did they manufacture that gut feeling of trust when paper money had previously failed so spectacularly?
Through design. Pure, uncompromising aesthetic design.
Really?
If you look at an old silver certificate or even a modern dollar bill, the design choices are not accidental.
Like the intricate patterns.
Yes, the complex sweeping flourishes, the incredibly intricate engravings that look almost impossible to forge, the austere, serious portraits of founding fathers staring back at you.
And the colors.
The heavy, dark green ink that feels institutional and permanent, none of that was just to make it look pretty. It was a highly conscious, deliberate attempt to design trust.
They had to make a flimsy piece of paper look so official, so authoritative, and so profoundly secure that your gut feeling bypassed your logical brain and told you it was as good as gold.
The government literally used graphic design to stop economic panic.
So what does this all mean for the business owner listening right now? Are we saying that investing in high-quality brand design, in aesthetics, in user experience is basically the equivalent of printing your own currency?
In a very real functional sense, yes. Trust is the ultimate shortcut to a buying decision.
Right.
When a customer stands in front of you and hands over their money, whether it is paper, plastic, or digital, they are trading their hard-earned, life-sustaining currency for your goods.
If your design, your messaging, your customer service, and your entire brand ecosystem cultivate deep, unshakable trust, you are manufacturing the literal bedrock of modern commerce. You are creating the conditions under which money changes hands.
And we don't have to just speak in metaphors here. We can put some incredibly hard, cold numbers to this concept of a gut feeling.
We can. There is a massive global consultancy called Interbrand, and their entire business model revolves around calculating the actual monetary worth of a company's brand equity.
They separate the tangible assets from the intangible gut feeling and assign it a dollar value.
The stats are absolutely mind-blowing. Let's look at Coca-Cola. A few years ago, Interbrand calculated that Coca-Cola's brand alone, just the brand, not the syrup factories, not the global bottling plants, not the fleet of delivery trucks, not the real estate.
Just the intangible equity existing in people's minds,
Yes, it was worth nearly $70 billion.
which is an astronomical figure. To put that in perspective, that $70 billion accounted for more than 60% of Coca-Cola's entire market capitalization at the time.
More than half of the value of one of the largest companies on Earth is literally just a feeling in our heads.
And it gets even more extreme with technology companies. If you looked at a company like Xerox, halfway down that same Interbrand list, their brand valuation was roughly $6 billion.
Okay, $6 billion.
But for Xerox, that intangible brand equity constituted a whopping 93% of their market cap.
93%. I want the listener to really sit with that number for a second. If you strip away the name Xerox, if you strip away the logo, the history, the reputation, and the trust,
The actual physical company, the patents, the plastic, the manufacturing facilities, the office chairs, is only worth 7% of the stock price.
the brand isn't a division of the company. The brand is the company.
It is, without question, the most valuable single asset they own. There is an old cynical saying in business management, what gets measured gets done.
Historically, brands were seen as these fuzzy, artistic, immeasurable things, so they were pushed aside by the finance and operations departments. They were treated as an afterthought.
But as brand value becomes highly measurable, as modern companies actively use these massive valuations to obtain better financing, to negotiate mergers and acquisitions, to assess damages in intellectual property lawsuits, and to justify their stock prices to Wall Street.
Executives are finally being forced to treat brand equity like real, hard capital.
The practical takeaway for the listener here
Yeah.
is massive. Whether you are running a local plumbing business or a tech startup, you have to stop viewing design and branding as an aesthetic expense.
It is not the cherry on top of the sundae. It is not something you do with the leftover budget at the end of the quarter.
It is a vital, central financial tool used to manufacture the ultimate business currency, which is customer trust.
But this brings us to a massive, glaring paradox. If all of this is true, if brand equity is worth billions, if everyone in the C-suite knows how important trust is, if we know that features are dead and identity is everything,
Right.
why are so many companies, even well-funded ones, failing so miserably at building a brand? Why is the landscape littered with forgettable generic companies?
Because for most companies, a brand isn't built. It just happens accidentally.
The founders and the executives are so incredibly busy worrying about the supply chain, putting out fires in HR, trying to hit quarterly sales quotas, that the brand is just a chaotic side effect of their operations.
And when they finally realize they have a problem, and they decide to proactively manage it, they step right into a trap.
A very specific structural trap that is known as the brand gap.
Let's dive deep into this because this is the core thesis of everything we are talking about today.
What exactly is this gap, and why is it so deadly?
The brand gap is the mile-wide, culturally ingrained chasm between strategy and creativity within a company.
Okay, walk me through that.
If you think about the architecture of a typical modern corporation, it is deeply, almost irrevocably divided by cognitive styles. On one side of the chasm, you have the strategists.
These are the executives, the MBAs, the marketing analysts, the finance directors.
These are the left-brain thinkers. Their cognitive style is analytical, logical, linear, concrete, numerical, and highly verbal.
They demand proof. They want a return on investment calculation for every single dollar spent.
They live and breathe in Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint decks, and quarterly performance reviews.
Exactly. Now, on the complete opposite side of the chasm, entirely isolated from the strategists, you have the designers, the copywriters, the art directors, the user experience specialists, the creative people.
These are the right-brain thinkers. Their cognitive style is intuitive, emotional, spatial, visual, and physical.
They don't care about the spreadsheet. They care about how an interaction feels. They care about empathy, aesthetics, and disruption.
And never the twain shall meet. The MBA and the NFA are basically taught to view each other with deep suspicion.
Very rarely do they actually collaborate effectively.
The left brain in a corporation often has absolutely no idea what the right brain is doing, and quite frankly, they usually don't even speak the same vocabulary.
The left brain executive wants to measure everything, the right brain creative wants to feel everything.
Whenever there is a structural rift between strategy and creativity, between the cold logic of the business plan and the warm magic of the execution, you have a brand gap.
There is a brilliant, highly visceral analogy that helps visualize this.
Oh, the radio one.
Yes. Imagine you are trying to listen to a state-of-the-art, high-definition radio broadcast, but you are trying to listen to it through completely incompatible, broken, cheap speakers.
The radio signal itself, which represents the business strategy, might be incredibly strong. It might be brilliantly researched, perfectly targeted, backed by millions of dollars of market data. The logic is flawless.
But if the speakers, which represent the creative execution, the graphic design, the copywriting, the customer experience, are incompatible with that signal,
The sound that actually reaches the listener in the room is distorted, garbled, full of static, and completely unintelligible.
we see this exact scenario play out constantly in the real world. A company develops a brilliant, meticulously researched left brain strategy. Let's say their strategy is to be the most premium white glove service in their industry.
Sounds good on paper.
But it completely fails at the point of customer contact because the creative execution was an afterthought. The website is cluttered, the typography looks cheap, the packaging is flimsy, and the customer service emails sound like they were written by a robot.
The signal was premium, but the speakers broadcasted cheap. The logic was there, but the magic was missing.
Or you see the exact opposite happen, which is just as tragic. A design team comes up with a bold, magical, incredibly empathetic right brain initiative. They design a campaign that would have captivated the market and created deep emotional loyalty.
But it gets ruthlessly killed in the boardroom.
Hmm.
The left-brain executives look at this beautiful, emotional campaign, and because they can't immediately quantify the ROI of a feeling on a spreadsheet, they kill it.
The magic is destroyed by the logic.
And here is where it gets really dangerous. This gap doesn't just cause internal friction or annoying office politics. It actually isolates the company completely from its customers.
Because the messaging is so mixed up.
If your logic and your magic aren't perfectly aligned, the customer experiences cognitive dissonance. They feel confused. They might not be able to articulate why they feel confused, but their gut tells them something is off.
And a confused customer never, ever buys. They don't complain. They just quietly walk away and go to a competitor.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If you are listening to this and you are a left-brain thinker, if you are the person who demands data to justify a design choice, or if you view the creative team as just the people who make things look pretty, you have to realize that this gap is where you are actively bleeding money.
But there is a silver lining here. There are two ways to look at the brand gap. Yes, it creates a massive natural barrier to communication for the 95% of companies that fall into it.
But for the 5% of companies that actually learn how to bridge it, it creates a massive, almost insurmountable natural barrier to competition.
Precisely. Because bridging this gap requires so much structural change and so much ego suppression, it is incredibly hard to do. If you can actually pull it off, you leave everyone else in the dust.
When a company manages to bridge that chasm, when the strategy and the creativity are acting as a single, unified organism, their brand communication comes through totally intact.
It is crystal clear and it is potent. It goes straight into the customer's brain without distortion, without noise, without static, and most importantly, without the customer having to burn any calories thinking about it.
It completely shrinks the psychic distance between the corporation and the consumer.
The practical takeaway here is that you cannot just hope for this alignment. You have to actively, aggressively force collaboration.
If you run a company, you have to lock the strategists and the creatives in the same room from day one, and you cannot let them out until the logic and the magic are tightly woven together.
You can't let the strategy be developed in a vacuum and then hand it off to the designers as an afterthought.
And when a company successfully weaves them together over a sustained period of time, they achieve the absolute holy grail of modern capitalism. They create what is known as a charismatic brand.
A charismatic brand. I love that terminology. It makes the brand sound alive. What exactly makes a brand charismatic?
The definition is incredibly simple to understand, but impossibly high bar to achieve. A charismatic brand is any product, service, or company for which people believe there is no substitute.
No substitute. That is a massive distinction. Not just it's slightly better than the competition or it's a better value, but a deeply held conviction that there is no acceptable alternative on Earth.
Exactly. And the financial rewards for reaching this level of charisma are staggering. Charismatic brands don't just compete in the category, they own it.
They often claim dominant market shares, frequently 50% or higher.
Because people genuinely believe there is no substitute, these brands have ultimate pricing power. They can command massive price premiums, sometimes up to 40% more than objectively similar generic products.
And most crucially, in an era of rapid technological cloning, they are virtually bulletproof against commoditization.
They become modern icons. When we talk about charismatic brands, the mind immediately goes to the massive consumer juggernauts. Apple, Nike, Disney, Coca-Cola, BMW, Harley-Davidson.
When people buy these brands, they aren't just buying a phone, a shoe, or a motorcycle. They are buying joy, they are buying intelligence, they are buying rebellion, they are buying strength.
They will literally tattoo the logo of these companies onto their physical bodies.
But what I find truly fascinating and encouraging is that this concept isn't just reserved for billion-dollar lifestyle companies.
No, the mechanics of a charismatic brand apply universally across every industry.
You can absolutely have a charismatic brand in the B2B space or in highly specialized, unglamorous niches. Let's look at John Deere.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
If you are a farmer in the American Midwest and your father, your grandfather, and your great-grandfather all worked the land using John Deere tractors, for you there is no substitute.
It fundamentally does not matter if a competitor releases a tractor that is 10% cheaper or has a slightly more efficient engine. You bleed John Deere green.
The brand is tied to your identity as a reliable provider for your family. Or look at Trane, the massive industrial air conditioning manufacturer.
They make giant metal boxes that sit on the roofs of commercial buildings.
But their tagline is, "It's hard to stop a train." When an HVAC contractor reads that, they feel a sense of rugged reliability. They feel understood in a difficult job. It's an emotional connection to a metal box.
To achieve that level of charisma, whether you are selling sneakers or industrial air conditioners, a brand needs to master a few key elements.
What are they?
They need a crystal clear, competitive stance. They need a deep sense of rectitude, meaning an unshakable internal integrity and belief in what they are doing. And, crucially, they must have an absolute dedication to aesthetics.
Wait, aesthetics. I can hear the left brain listeners groaning again. Why is aesthetics, the way something looks and feels, so critical to a charismatic brand?
I know it sounds counterintuitive.
We just talked about John Deere tractors and commercial AC units. Those aren't fashion items. Why does the aesthetic matter?
Because aesthetics is the primary language of feeling. As we established earlier, we are living in a society that is drowning in information and starved for time.
People simply do not have the time or the cognitive energy to process complex information, but they always have the capacity to process a feeling.
In fact, evolutionary biology dictates that feelings are processed instantaneously by the amygdala, long before the rational cortex even turns on.
When you dedicate yourself to aesthetics, you are bypassing the slow, skeptical, logical brain, and you are speaking directly to the customer's gut feeling. Aesthetics is how you deliver the magic.
This brings up what is undoubtedly my absolute favorite example from our exploration of this topic, Morton salt.
Yes. It is the perfect, ultimate case study in the power of aesthetics and branding. Let's really think about salt for a minute. Ordinary table salt? Sodium chloride.
It is a literal rock that we mine from the earth or extract from the ocean.
It is identical at a molecular level no matter who sells it. It is literally the ultimate, most boring, most ancient commodity in human history. Salt is salt.
There are no features to update. There is no software patch for salt.
And yet, Morton managed to turn sodium chloride into a premium product, a charismatic brand that has dominated the market for over a century. How on earth did they do it?
They didn't do it by arguing the chemical purity of their salt.
They did it by putting a painting of a little girl in a yellow dress holding an umbrella in the rain on a dark blue cylindrical package.
They use pure aesthetics to evoke a feeling of comfort, reliability, and nostalgia.
The image of the girl, combined with the brilliant slogan, "When it rains, it pours," which was originally a clever way to highlight their technical anti-caking innovation so the salt wouldn't clump in humid weather.
It created a profound emotional resonance. Through consistent, beautiful design, it stopped being a generic chemical compound called sodium chloride, and it started being a trusted, familiar friend sitting in the kitchen pantry.
It proves the point so perfectly that it's almost infuriating. There are absolutely no dull products in the world. There are only dull brands.
If a company can take literal rocks table salt and turn it into a charismatic brand that commands a premium price simply through a dedication to aesthetics, and by bridging the gap between a logical anti-caking feature and a magical girl with an umbrella, then you could do it with literally anything.
You can do it with accounting software, you can do it with management consulting, you can do it with plumbing services, you name it.
You can do it with anything,
Hmm.
but it requires profound courage and imagination. You have to be willing to view your business not just as a mechanical machine that produces goods or services, but as an entity that produces meaning.
You have to be willing to fight for the magic when the spreadsheets are telling you to cut costs.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's pull all of these threads together and synthesize the true soul of this framework.
We started by wiping the slate clean. A brand is not your logo, it's not your color palette, and it is certainly not your product. It is a shared, ephemeral gut feeling built entirely on the foundation of trust.
And because the modern consumer is utterly overwhelmed with choices, paralyzed by data, and starved for time, that gut feeling is the only cognitive shortcut they have left to survive the marketplace.
They aren't buying your features, they are buying the tribal identity and the deep trust your brand provides.
But to build that trust, to manufacture that incredible currency, you can't just stumble around in the dark hoping people like you. You have to actively engineer and manage that gut feeling.
You have to build a sturdy bridge across the brand gap, forcing a connection between the cold, analytical, ROI-driven left brain strategy and the warm, emotional, empathetic right brain creativity. Logic and magic have to shake hands.
When you do that successfully, you elevate your business out of the brutal, margin-crushing gutter of commoditization. You create a charismatic brand, something your customers genuinely believe has absolutely no substitute.
You become irreplaceable in an overwhelming world. But creating this kind of magic isn't just about wishing for it or having a really great brainstorming session.
Bridging this gap and building a charismatic brand requires mastering 5 very specific, actionable disciplines: differentiate, collaborate, innovate, validate, and cultivate.
Indeed, it is a rigorous process. But how exactly do you make sure your brand stands out in a sea of identical clones without losing your core focus?
How do you actually find that unique position in the mind of the consumer?
That brings us to the very first discipline, differentiation, which we'll be exploring in deep detail next time.
I cannot wait to unpack that. But before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to chew on.
I want you to think about your absolute favorite product, the one thing you are irrationally loyal to.
The brand you would actively, passionately defend to a stranger at a dinner party. Are you truly buying it for the practical, logical job it does?
Or, if you sit down and are brutally honest with yourself, are you actually paying a massive premium for who it makes you feel like you are? Remember, your brand is completely out of your direct control. It lives entirely in the gut of your customer. Until next time, keep diving deep. If a top-tier consultant burst into your marketing meeting right now, literally slammed the conference room doors open.
Oh, wow. Okay. Setting a scene?
Yeah, just walked right up to the whiteboard and demanded to know exactly why your business matters. Like, right to your face. Could you answer them?
I feel like most people would freeze.
Right. Or would the room just fall completely painfully silent?
Yeah, that is, it's the ultimate nightmare scenario for most executives. Just the throat clearing, the shuffling of papers, the frantic looks across the table.
Exactly. And that silence, that hesitation that represents the core tension of business today.
It really does.
It is the absolute struggle to definitively prove why you or, your product or your service are actually different from the endless sea of alternatives out there.
Because there are so many alternatives.
So many. And if you can't answer it in the conference room surrounded by your own team, your customer definitely can't answer it in the crowded aisles of a store.
No, of course not.
Or, while scrolling through 1,000 open tabs on their browser at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, that inability to articulate a meaningful difference is, well, honestly, it's where companies begin to die.
Right.
It transforms a potentially vibrant business into a mere commodity. And commodities are always just waiting to be priced out of existence by someone willing to do the exact same thing for a penny less.
Just a race to the bottom.
Exactly, a race to the bottom.
Well, today we are going on a mission to solve that problem. We are taking a deep dive into the discipline of differentiation.
It's such a crucial topic.
It really is.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're looking at how to bridge the massive gap between your business strategy, the stuff on the whiteboard, and your customer's actual lived experience.
Right. Bringing those two things together.
And we do that by mastering the art of standing out. This matters profoundly for anyone listening who is interested in business, entrepreneurship, or honestly, just human psychology.
Oh, absolutely. The psychology is a huge part of it.
Because without a clear point of differentiation, a brand isn't actually a brand at all. It's just noise.
Yeah. And to really understand how to build that difference, we have to establish basically a fundamental baseline rule.
Okay, lay it on us.
It is a really harsh truth for a lot of founders and marketers to swallow, but it's totally necessary. You ready?
I'm ready.
A brand is not what you say it is. It's what they say it is.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that goes against every instinct of traditional corporate management, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because we are taught that if we design a slick logo, write a clever tagline, and enforce a really strict corporate identity system, then we have effectively managed our brand.
Right, like a pet you can put on a leash.
Yeah. We treat it like an asset we can just lock in a vault and control.
We desperately want to believe we are in control. But a brand is actually, it's a gut feeling.
A gut feeling.
Yeah, it is an approximate yet distinct understanding that lives entirely in the minds of the audience.
Because we aren't robots.
Exactly. We are emotional, intuitive beings, despite all our attempts to project pure rationality in our purchasing habits. Like, we want to think we buy things logically.
Right. I bought this car for the fuel efficiency.
Sure you did. But really, each individual person interacting with your company creates their own version of your brand in their head.
Oh, interesting. So it's subjective.
Highly subjective. It's constructed from their unique experiences, their biases, their perceptions.
So when enough individuals happen to arrive at the same gut feeling about a company, like when the consensus hits a critical mass, then you can say you have a brand.
Yes, you nailed it. You can't dictate it, but you can influence it.
Okay, so how do you influence a gut feeling? That sounds like trying to catch smoke.
You influence it by meticulously communicating the qualities that make your product different from another. Brand management is, at its core, entirely about the management of differences.
The management of differences.
And we are not talking about differences on a technical data sheet, right?
Right. We have 2 gigabytes of RAM instead of 1.
Exactly. Nobody cares about that on a gut level. We are talking about differences as they are perceived emotionally and psychologically in the minds of people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if it's all about managing differences, how do we figure out what our difference even is in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question.
Which brings us back to that screeching halt in the marketing meeting we talked about at the very beginning, that consultant bursting in.
Oh, right, the nightmare scenario.
Yeah, we can actually look at a framework used by strategists like Greg Galley to stop the corporate spin in its tracks. It boils down to 3 little questions that act as this ruthless litmus test.
3 little questions. They sound so simple, but they are devastating.
They really are. Question 1, who are you?
Okay.
Question 2, what do you do?
Right.
And question 3, why does it matter?
Yeah, they're deceptively simple.
Very deceptive.
Because most companies can answer the first one easily enough, right? We are company X.
Sure, they know their name, hopefully.
Right. And they might stumble a little on the second one, getting bogged down in industry jargon or trying to list 30 different services.
We provide synergistic B2B solutions for the modern paradigm.
Ugh, exactly. But they can usually spit out a version of what we do. The third question, however, why does it matter? That is where the entire facade usually crumbles.
I really want to dig into why that third question is so devastating.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because on the surface, every CEO thinks their company matters, obviously.
Right.
They can show you a spreadsheet proving they matter to the shareholders, or point to a quarterly earnings report showing, year-over-year growth.
But the customer does not care about your quarterly earnings.
Not even a little bit.
No.
Yeah.
That third question forces a company to completely strip away its corporate ego.
That's a great way to put it, stripping away the ego.
It demands that leadership look in the mirror and evaluate if customers actually find them irresistible. It forces the question, if your company disappeared tomorrow, just vanished, would anyone genuinely care?
Or would they just seamlessly switch to a competitor the next morning?
Exactly. If you do not have a compelling, human-centric answer to why does it matter,
Yeah.
you do not have a brand. You are
Yeah.
just, you're just taking up space in the market.
We can actually look at a classic concrete example of a company that absolutely nails this litmus test.
Oh, yeah. Who?
John Deere.
Ah, yeah, perfect example.
Think about how they would answer those three questions. Who are you? We're John Deere.
Simple,
What do you do? We make farm tractors and related equipment.
clear.
Why does it matter? It matters because generations of farmers have trusted our equipment to work the land.
Wow. Yeah. It is brilliant and it's singular focus.
It's so emotionally resonant, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And every single touch point of their business supports that specific difference. The trademark silhouette of the leaping stag,
Classic.
the iconic green and yellow colors that are instantly recognizable all the way across a massive field.
You see that green, you know exactly what it is.
Right. And the tagline, "Nothing runs like a deer." It all reinforces that core answer to why they matter. Generational trust, ruggedness, and reliable performance.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate here for a second just to see where this breaks down.
I love a good devil's advocate.
What if John Deere looked at the market and said, you know what? Tractors are great, the agricultural sector is solid, but we have all this excess capital.
Okay.
We should diversify and hedge our bets. Let's get into commercial real estate development in urban centers.
Oh, no.
And hey, let's start offering boutique healthcare plans. Let's manufacture chemical fertilizer.
Yeah, that is the classic trap of the brand extension.
Driven by a desire for endless growth.
Exactly. Endless growth at the total expense of identity.
So how do they answer the three questions then? We're John Deere. You know us for tractors, but we also build skyscrapers and sell insurance now.
It just sounds absurd.
It matters because, well, you can buy lots of different things from us, and we are very profitable.
And instantly, the brand becomes muddy. The visceral gut feeling of the reliable generational farming partner, it's just gone.
Evaporated.
The customer looking for a tractor sees this sprawling, unfocused conglomerate and thinks, I'm not sure they really care about tractors anymore. I think I'll just buy a Kubota.
It reminds me of a very relatable everyday scenario.
Let's hear it.
Think about a local restaurant in your town.
Okay.
Imagine you walk in, and the menu says they specialize in highly authentic imported fish Tokyo sushi.
Sounds delicious.
But you turn the page, and they also serve authentic New York-style pizza.
Uh-huh.
You turn another page, and they have a full menu of authentic Mexican street tacos.
Yeah. The immediate psychological reaction to that is just deep skepticism.
You stop trusting any of it.
Exactly.
You don't believe the sushi is fresh, you don't believe the pizza dough has been fermented properly, and you definitely don't believe the tacos are authentic.
Right, because by trying to be everything, they are actively signaling a lack of expertise to your brain.
Yes. If a brand says, we do lots of different things, the human brain instantly registers a lack of focus and therefore a lack of quality.
We can actually look at a real-world counterexample of a brand that stretched way too far and snapped.
Ooh,
Harley-Davidson.
really?
Yeah, a brand built entirely on rebellion, masculinity, and the open road.
Leather jackets, loud pipes.
Exactly. Well, they once introduced a line of perfumes and colognes.
Oh, wow. Harley-Davidson cologne.
Yeah. And the brain simply rejects it. The concept of brand permission, which is basically how far a brand can stretch into new categories before the consumer calls 9 cents, was severely violated.
I mean, I can see why. The gut feeling of Harley-Davidson does not align with applying a delicate fragrance before a night out on the town.
Not even a little bit.
So for anyone listening right now who is building something, a business, a freelance portfolio, a tech startup, whatever this is, a foundational audit you must perform today.
Yes. Do not skip this.
Write down those three questions. Who are you? What do you do? Why does it matter?
And be honest with yourself.
Brutally honest. If your answers sound like corporate speak, or if your answer to the third question wouldn't make a potential customer stop scrolling and pay attention, you have to hit pause.
Stop designing the logo.
Yes. Stop writing the website copy. Stop buying social media ads. Fix this foundation first, because if you don't know what makes you different, your customer never will.
That is so true. And assuming a business does figure out what makes them different, which is a huge if, the next monumental hurdle is understand how the customer actually processes that difference.
Okay, the mechanics of it.
Right. And to understand that, we have to step out of the boardroom entirely and look at the biology of the human brain.
I love this part. If our whole goal is to stand out, we have to understand the biological machine we are trying to stand out to.
Exactly. Differentiation isn't just some clever marketing tactic invented by ad agencies in the 20th century. It works because of how our cognitive system evolved to operate over hundreds of thousands of years.
We're talking caveman days.
Yeah, we are walking around with brains that act as massive, highly restrictive filters.
Because we have to have those filters, right? Otherwise, we'd go completely insane.
Well, absolutely.
Think about the sheer volume of sensory data hitting your nervous system every single second of the day. The hum of the refrigerator.
The feeling of your socks against your ankles.
The specific temperature of the air. The peripheral movement outside your window. If your brain tried to process all of that equally dedicating conscious thought to every single input, you would be paralyzed.
You'd be drowning in a sea of trivial, irrelevant information. You couldn't function.
So to survive, the brain acts as a ruthless bouncer at the door of your consciousness.
A ruthless bouncer. I like that.
It filters almost everything out.
Right. In neuroscience, this is often discussed in relation to the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
The RAS, okay.
It's a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information so the important stuff actually gets through. And the way it decides what gets through the filter is by categorizing things based on past experiences.
Okay.
And specifically by looking for contrast.
Contrast, it's evolutionary survival 101.
Exactly.
You have to be able to instantly, without conscious thought, discern the difference between a dog and a lion on the savannah.
Very important difference.
Very. Or the difference between a shadow on the ground and a deep crevasse you might fall into.
You need to instantly recognize the bright warning colors of a poisonous frog versus a safe, edible plant.
We are hardwired by evolution to notice differences, period.
We are. And the sense we rely on the most heavily to do this is sight.
Our visual system.
Yes. It's an incredibly complex machine built entirely for spotting contrast. It looks for the biggest, most obvious differences first, and then works its way down to the smallest details.
Like scanning a room.
Right. It is constantly scanning the environment for subject versus ground, big versus small, dark versus light, rough versus smooth, moving versus motionless.
So the brain is basically just pulling in raw contrasting data sets first before we even realize what we're looking at consciously.
Exactly. In a fraction of a second, the visual cortex processes that contrast, and then the higher brain, including areas like the amygdala, takes over and begins to assign meaning and emotion to those contrasts.
Near versus far.
Safe versus aggressive.
Edible versus poisonous.
Right. And this all happens entirely below our conscious awareness. And what's fascinating here is that this deeply biological evolutionary process ties directly into the concept of aesthetics.
Aesthetics. Now, when we hear aesthetics, we usually think of like high art.
Right.
A painting on a wall.
Museum curation, or maybe interior design. We think of the study of beauty as something highly subjective and cultural.
But in a functional biological sense, the concerns of our visual system are essentially the exact same as the concerns of aesthetics.
Really?
Yeah. Both are fundamentally about perceiving differences. When a new product or a piece of packaging uses contrast masterfully, not just in its physical design, but in its very concept, it appeals directly to that hardwired visual system.
So we find it aesthetically pleasing. Exactly. We like it simply because it is noticeably different in a world of sameness. It bypasses the RAS filter.
The bouncer lets it into the club of our conscious attention.
The bouncer opens the velvet rope.
Think about one of the most surprising yet perfect examples of this.
Let's hear it.
Morton salt.
Oh, Morton salt. Yeah.
What is more boring, what is more of a generic baseline commodity than ordinary table salt?
It is literally just a white rock that tastes salty. That's it.
It is the definition of a product that should be entirely invisible to the human brain.
It should be completely filtered out.
But then you look at what they did with the packaging over a century ago.
It's iconic.
They put that striking illustration of the little girl with the umbrella.
All right.
And they used that dark, rich blue background, heavily contrasting with the stark white of the pouring salt.
Masterful contrast.
Paired with the clever tagline, "When it rains, it pours." By mastering visual contrast and tying it to a memorable aesthetic concept, they turned the ultimate boring commodity into a premium product that people actually feel a gut connection to.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
As the old design adage goes, there are no dull products, only dull brands.
Okay, but I want to push back on this for a second, or at least clarify something.
Sure.
Because I want to draw a line here between different types of design. When we think about traditional graphic design or industrial design, we're usually taught that design has four main tactical goals, right?
Right. To identify, to inform, to entertain, or to persuade.
Exactly. But isn't differentiation just a fancy word for being loud? If those four goals are tactical, how does differentiation fit in?
Well,
Because if I make my startup's website neon pink and flashing, it certainly contrasts, right?
oh yeah, it contrasts.
And it certainly bypasses the filter, but it's also incredibly obnoxious. It might get attention, but it doesn't build a brand.
And that right there is the critical difference between a tactic and a strategy. Being loud just to be loud is tactical and usually misguided. The fifth goal of design, which is specifically tied to branding, is to differentiate, which is highly strategic.
So it's not just noise.
No, it's not just about making something look pretty or loud. It's about rooting the design deep in aesthetics to bypass the brain's filter while simultaneously communicating your core meaning.
Communicating meaning, that's the key.
Right. It is the synthesis of logic, the strategy of why you are different, and magic, the visual execution that captures the eye and delights the senses without annoying them.
Logic and magic, I like that. So for the listener who is working on a product, a storefront, or a website right now,
Yeah.
stop trying to make it just look nice or professional.
Please stop.
In the modern business landscape, professional usually just means it looks exactly like everyone else in my industry.
It's a race to the middle.
If you are launching a fintech app and everyone in your industry uses navy blue logos,
Which they all do.
right, navy blue logos, clean sans serif fonts, and minimalist geometric shapes, and you do the exact same thing because it looks professional, you are actively rendering yourself invisible.
You are telling the brain's bouncer that you are not worth noticing.
Nothing to see here. Keep walking.
Exactly. You have to look at the landscape of your competitors and design specifically for strategic contrast. You have to make your difference obvious to the visual system first, or your logical arguments about why your product is better will never even be heard.
A bouncer won't even let you hand him your flyer.
Precisely.
Okay, so if our underlying human cognitive biology, this need to filter out the mundane, has remained exactly the same for hundreds of thousands of years, why is branding so difficult today?
That's a great question.
Why didn't early 20th century companies have to worry about aesthetic differentiation and strategic contrast? I mean, Henry Ford could just sell a boring black Model T, and he basically won the entire market.
Well, the biology hasn't changed, but the environment we operate in has shifted radically.
The market environment.
Right. It has been a constant accelerating evolution to keep up with changing economic realities and shifting consumer expectations. We can actually trace a clear historical timeline of how marketing appeals have evolved over the last century.
Let's do that.
We've moved from an economy of scarcity to an economy of overwhelming abundance.
Let's walk through that timeline because it explains exactly why we are in this current mess of information overload. If we go back to the year 1900,
Okay, 1900.
marketing was almost entirely focused on features.
Well, it has.
Right. Products were scarce, manufacturing was relatively new, and innovation was largely mechanical. So an ad for an early automobile didn't need to sell you on a lifestyle.
No, not at all.
It literally just needed to say it has an internal combustion engine, 4 wheels, and it doesn't require a horse.
And people were like, wow, I'll take it.
Exactly. The mere existence of the features was enough of a contrast to make a sale.
But as competitors caught up and manufacturing scaled, simply listing features was no longer a competitive advantage. Every car had an engine. Every washing machine had a motor.
Right. The baseline was met.
So, by 1925, the emphasis shifted to benefits.
What it does.
Exactly. It wasn't just about having engine. It was about the tangible result. It gets you to town in half the time, saving you hours of labor. It was a highly rational, functional appeal.
We moved from what it has to what it does, but then we hit the post-World War II boom.
Ah, the 1950s.
The global market flooded with consumer goods, middle-class prosperity exploded. Suddenly, everyone has a car that gets you to town quickly. Everyone has a refrigerator that keeps food cold.
The functional benefits became completely commoditized.
Right. So by the 1950s and extending through the late 20th century, marketing shifted again, this time to experience.
What you'll feel.
Yes.
This is when branding, as we understand it, started to really take shape. It became about the smooth ride, the thrill of the open road, the joy of a family vacation in the station wagon.
The refreshing feeling of drinking an ice-cold Coca-Cola on a hot summer day.
Exactly. The appeal moved from the rational brain to the emotional brain.
And that brings us to the year 2000 and beyond, the digital age.
Welcome to the modern era.
Where are we now if we've already exhausted features, benefits, and experiences?
Now, we are firmly entrenched in the era of identification.
Identification.
Yes. The core marketing appeal has shifted to answering the question, who you are.
Wow. From what it has in 1900 to who you are today, that is a massive psychological leap.
It changes everything.
We are no longer just buying tools to help us survive. We are buying symbols to help us define ourselves.
It's the direct result of moving from a one-size-fits-all industrial economy to a hyper-segmented mass customization economy.
Right.
Today, features, benefits, and even good experiences are the bare minimum cost of entry. If your product doesn't work or the experience is terrible, you're dead in the water anyway.
You don't even get to play the game.
Exactly. But those factors are rarely the deciding factor anymore. Personal identity has become the paramount driver of purchasing decisions. People buy based on signaling theory.
Signaling theory.
They use products as symbolic cues to communicate their values, their status, and their identity to the world around them.
Okay, let me push back on this because it sounds like we are suggesting that product quality doesn't matter anymore.
Oh, I see where you're going.
If personal identity is all that matters, does that mean a company can make a terrible, broken, objectively inferior product, but as long as they have a brilliant, identity-driven marketing campaign, they will dominate the market?
Absolutely not. And this is a trap many modern startups fall into.
The hype machine trap.
Yes. Think of it as putting a flat tire on a Ferrari.
Okay.
You can have the most beautiful, exotic, perfectly designed Ferrari in the world that represents your brilliant strategy, your identity, your aesthetic contrast. It turns heads. It gets past the brain's filter.
Everyone is looking at it.
But if it has a flat tire, which represents poor execution, a buggy app, or a product that breaks after 2 uses, it's not going anywhere.
It fails on the street.
Execution, quality, and fulfilling the promise always matter. You have to fix the tire.
But the reverse of that scenario is also true, isn't it? And perhaps even more common today.
Yes, a masterfully engineered car with no aesthetic appeal, no brand identity, and no emotional resonance is completely doomed in today's market.
Because nobody even notices it.
Why? Because only one competitor in any given category can be the absolute cheapest. Only one company can win the race to the bottom on price and survive on sheer volume.
Right, Amazon or Walmart already won that game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every single other company in that category must use branding, differentiation, and identity to survive. If you aren't the cheapest option and you don't have a distinct identity that people want to associate themselves with, you have zero reason to exist in the customer's mind.
For the listener, this means you have to take a hard, objective look at your current marketing and sales materials.
Audit everything.
Audit your website, your social media presence, your pitch decks. Are you still selling like it's 1925?
Just listing benefits.
Are you just bullet pointing the functional benefits of what your service does? We save you time. We increase your ROI by 15%. We offer 247 customer support.
Snooze.
That is no longer enough to win. Your competitors are saying the exact same things. You have to elevate your messaging to answer the 21st century question. Who is my customer becoming by buying this?
That is the question.
What does choosing your product say about them to their peers? Are they becoming the innovator, the pragmatist, the rebel?
And this shift toward who you are marketing didn't happen in a vacuum. It isn't just a clever trick invented by Silicon Valley. No, it directly correlates with a much larger global sociological shift. To truly master differentiation today, we have to understand the profound clash between the relentless march of globalism and our deep, ancient human need to belong to something smaller.
We are moving from business strategy into deep sociology here, which is fascinating.
It's all connected.
We are looking at this tension. Globalism versus tribalism. What exactly is the dynamic at play?
Well, as globalism rapidly advances, driven by the internet, international trade, and social media, it continually removes historical barriers.
Borders become less meaningful.
Right. We now have global communication, global supply chains, and increasingly homogenized global monoculture. You can buy the exact same cup of coffee in Seattle, Tokyo, and London.
It's convenient, sure.
It is convenient. But sociologically, human beings do not thrive in a completely barrier-free, infinite world.
We aren't neurologically wired to be citizens of a population of 8 billion people.
Rare.
Our brains evolved to handle living in a village of maybe 150 people.
Exactly. Dunbar's number.
Yeah.
When you strip away those traditional boundaries, when the world becomes too vast and interconnected, people feel profoundly alienated. They feel lost, insignificant, and adrift in a massive, uncaring world. We have lost many of our traditional community structures, neighborhood associations, local clubs, distinct regional cultures.
So what do we do?
So as the macro barriers come down, People instinctively begin to erect micro barriers.
Mm.
They seek out intimate, manageable worlds that they can actually understand, spaces where they can be somebody, where they have clear status, and where they feel a visceral sense of belonging.
They create tribes.
They create tribes.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
Into this psychological void where traditional community structures have eroded, modern brands have stepped in to fill the gap.
It's wild to think about, but yes, if you stretch the sociological concept of a tribe just a little bit, you realize that modern brands are essentially creating these tribal boundaries. Consumers are using brands to construct their identities piecemeal.
Piecemeal, like building a persona.
Right. Depending on a person's unique buying state, meaning the specific psychological mindset and situational need they are experiencing at any given moment in the day, they can join multiple different tribes.
Let's clarify that term, unique buying state, because it's crucial.
Yeah, it's a great concept.
You're saying I am literally a different psychological person when I am buying a tool for my job at 10 a.m. versus when I am buying a bottle of wine for a dinner party at 6:00 p.m.
Completely different.
I am seeking different tribal affiliations based on the context of the moment.
Precisely. You shift seamlessly between these tribes all day long. You might join the Callaway tribe when you step onto the golf course on a Saturday morning.
Right.
For those 4 hours, you are signaling your membership in a specific clan that values a certain type of performance, tradition, and athletic status.
And then the game ends.
Then you pack up your clubs and join the Volkswagen tribe for your drive home,
Okay, changing hats.
identifying with a more practical, cleverly designed, slightly quirky community that values engineering without ostentation.
And then I get home.
And then you arrive home and join the Williams-Sonoma tribe when you cook a meal, aligning yourself with an identity of culinary sophistication, domestic warmth, and premium quality.
It's almost as if brands have become the little gods of modern life.
Little gods.
Each brand rules over a different specific need, a different activity, mood, or situational context in our daily lives.
While calling a brand a god might sound intense, it highlights the level of trust and emotional reliance we place on these entities to help us navigate the modern world.
I do have to push back on that phrasing, though.
Sure.
Calling it worship or framing brands as gods sounds incredibly cult-like. Are we suggesting consumers are just blindly devoted, mindless worshipers at the altar of Apple or Nike or Tesla? That feels overly cynical and ignores consumer agency.
It's a vital distinction to make. It is actually the exact opposite of blind worship.
Hmm.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the consumer is entirely in control.
They have the power.
Always. These are highly conditional transactional gods. Yes, they provide identity, belonging, and a cognitive shortcut. But if a brand disappoints the consumer,
If they mess up.
if their chosen god falls from Olympus by cheapening their product, violating the tribe's ethical values, or simply losing its cultural relevance, the consumer abandons them instantly and switches to another one.
You're dead to me.
Exactly. It is a transactional form of identity construction. We are hiring the brand to do the job of signaling our identity.
That makes total sense. We aren't worshiping Tesla. We are hiring Tesla to signal to our neighbors that we are tech-forward, environmentally conscious, and financially successful.
Right.
And if Tesla starts doing things that contradict that signal, we will fire them and hire Rivian or Porsche instead.
Because the goal is preserving the identity of the tribe, not preserving the brand itself. The brand is merely the current vessel for the tribe's values.
So if you are an entrepreneur or a business leader listening to this, the major takeaway here is that you have to completely abandon the idea of appealing to the general public.
Burn it down. The general public is a myth.
A myth left over from the 1950s broadcast television era, where 3 channels dictated the entire culture.
Right. There is no mass market anymore. There are only interconnected tribes.
Attempting to appeal to everyone is the absolute fastest way to appeal to no one. If you try to make your product acceptable to every possible demographic, you remove all the edges.
You sand it down to nothing.
You remove all the contrast. And as we established with the biology of the brain, a lack of contrast means you get filtered out by the bouncer.
The goal, then, is to define the specific, narrow tribe you are leading. Who are they? What do they value deeply?
And perhaps more importantly, what are the barriers you can build to make them feel safe and understood inside your tribe while actively keeping the rest of the world out?
Yes, you actually want people on the outside to look at your brand and say, I don't get it, or even I hate it.
This isn't for me.
Because that friction validates the people on the inside who say, this is exactly for me. Finally, someone gets it.
Think about a brand like Liquid Death.
Oh, Perfect example.
Selling water in tallboy aluminum cans with heavy metal branding. Most people over the age of 50 look at that and think it's utterly ridiculous.
Why is water aggressive?
Right. But the teenagers and skaters who buy it love it because their parents think it's ridiculous. The barrier creates the value.
But building those barriers and leading a specific tribe requires a massive sacrifice from the business. You cannot be everything to everyone.
You have to choose.
You have to make incredibly hard choices about what you are not going to do, who you are not going to serve, and what features you are not going to build.
And that brings us to what might be the most difficult, painful part of differentiation for any business. Focus.
Focus. It sounds so simple on paper, but it is agonizing in practice. It is the law of the jungle.
The law of the jungle, what do you mean?
In business, it's the survival of the fittingest. Competition in a crowded marketplace naturally forces specialization. If you are a generalist trying to do 5 things adequately, a specialist will always come along and steal your lunch because they are perfectly adapted to do one of those things exceptionally well for a specific niche.
So what's the rule of thumb here?
The rule of thumb is brutal but true. If you cannot realistically be number 1 or number 2 in your specific category, you must redefine your category.
Let's ground that. How does a company actually pull that off? How do you just declare a new category and redefine the battlefield?
Let's look at what happened with a software company called FrameMaker years ago.
Okay.
They were competing in the standard word processing category, but they were stuck at a distant number 3.
Behind who?
Microsoft Word and WordPerfect were completely dominating the space, and FrameMaker was just fighting for scraps as the 3rd best word processor on the market.
And as we know, nobody cares about the 3rd best anything. The brain filters it out.
Exactly. So instead of continuing to fight a losing battle in a massive pond, they shifted their strategic focus. They redefined their category entirely.
What did they do?
They stopped calling themselves a word processing product, which put them in direct competition with Microsoft, and repositioned the exact same software as a document publishing product.
Oh, interesting pivot.
They narrowed their focus to target people writing massive, highly complex technical manuals and books, not just everyday people writing letters or memos.
So they sacrificed the general market.
Yes. And by changing that focus, they instantly became the undisputed number 1 in this new, highly specialized category, and their sales doubled.
They didn't even necessarily have to rebuild the software from scratch. They just changed the lens through which the customer viewed it. They created a barrier.
They found a smaller pond where they could be the biggest fish, and they dominated that specific tribe of technical writers.
That's brilliant, but on the flip side, losing focus can be incredibly dangerous, even for established, multi-billion-dollar giants.
Which is why we have to look at the cautionary tale of a brand like Volvo.
Volvo, okay.
For decades, Volvo built an absolutely bulletproof brand by owning one specific, incredibly powerful word in the consumer's mind: safe.
Yep, the safe car.
They were the safe alternative.
Yeah.
They built heavy, boxy, tank-like vehicles. They weren't sexy, they weren't particularly fast, and they certainly weren't cheap. But if you wanted to protect your family above all else, you bought a Volvo. They owned that niche completely.
Right, survival of the fittingest. They fit perfectly into the safety-conscious, affluent parent space. They own that tribe.
But then they started to lose focus.
What happened?
They looked at the broader market, saw the massive profit margins in luxury performance vehicles, and decided they wanted a piece of the sports car demographic.
Uh-oh.
They started adding fast, sleek, aggressive vehicles to their lineup. This raises a critical psychological question. Is the concept of raciness actually compatible with the concept of safety in the human brain?
I would argue they are completely at odds.
How so?
When I think of a fast, sleek sports car, I think of risk, adrenaline, pushing the limits, maybe a hint of danger. When I think of safety, I think of caution, durability, protection, and predictability. They are psychologically contradictory.
Very much so.
If you compare them to Porsche, Porsche makes sports cars, but then they successfully launched the Cayenne SUV. Why did Porsche succeed where Volvo struggled? Because Porsche's core identity is engineering performance. You can apply performance to an SUV, but you cannot easily apply safety to a sports car without diluting both concepts.
Exactly. By trying to appeal to the sports car buyer, Volvo risked alienating their core tribe of safety-conscious parents.
Are they safe anymore, or are they just fast?
The brain looks at a sleek, fast Volvo and gets confused. The gut feeling gets muddy. In trying to satisfy every consumer desire, a company risks weaving recklessly toward becoming a no-man's brand. They risk losing the one definitive difference that made them successful in the first place.
But this brings up a massive question about corporate behavior. If focus is so demonstrably powerful and losing it is so historically dangerous, why does almost every successful company eventually try to expand into areas they have no business being in? Why do CEOs make these choices?
Because the pressure to lose focus is immense, constant, and systemic.
It's baked into the system.
It is often referred to as a symptom of the innovator's dilemma. Once a company achieves some success, the internal dynamics change entirely.
You have stockholder expectations demanding constant quarterly revenue growth.
You have political infighting among executives who want to build their own fiefdoms by launching new product lines.
I want to run the new sports car division.
Right. You have management changes where a new CEO comes in and wants to leave their personal mark by expanding the company's footprint.
Oh, there is a constant, almost overwhelming temptation to extend the product line for a short-term financial bump, even if it demonstrably dilutes the brand's core identity and long-term equity.
So how do you visualize doing extensions the right way versus the wrong way?
Let's think about the brand Good Grips.
Oh, the kitchen stuff.
Yeah, they make those kitchen utensils with the thick, black, rubbery, ergonomic handles for people who might have arthritis or just want a better grip.
Very recognizable.
Picture a tree. The trunk of the tray is their core differentiation. Ergonomic, easy to hold handles. As long as they stay focused on that core idea, every brand extension, a spatula, a pizza cutter, a potato peeler, is a branch that makes the whole tree stronger.
It reinforces the core brand in the consumer's mind.
But if the executives got greedy and suddenly started making fine crystal wine glasses or heavy cast iron Dutch ovens, they would be growing massive branches that do not connect to the trunk.
The tree would become top-heavy, the roots wouldn't support it, and the brand would break.
So does this mean a company should never grow, never innovate, and never launch new products? Are you just supposed to stay small forever?
No, growth is essential for survival. But the growth has to be an authentic extension of the core identity.
It has to sprout from the same trunk.
It cannot be a betrayal of the very thing that made you special to your tribe in the first place. You have to innovate within your lane. As the legendary positioning expert Jack Drought warned, you must differentiate or die.
Differentiate or die. That is intense.
It is a phenomenal practical takeaway for us to end on. You need to ruthlessly audit your own offerings. Look at everything you sell, every service you provide, every feature on your app.
Are you growing your brand through aligned extensions that reinforce your core difference? Or are you harvesting your brand, selling out your core focus for short-term cash by offering unrelated things that muddy the waters?
You have to be willing to be number one in a tiny, highly focused space, rather than fading into a forgotten number three in a massive generalized space.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. From the tense atmosphere of corporate boardrooms to the evolutionary biology of the brain's filters, from the functional marketing of the 1900s to the complex sociology of modern tribalism. Let's synthesize all of this. If someone takes only one thing away from this deep dive, how do we tie all these pieces together?
If we pull all these threads together, we arrive at one clear, memorable insight that represents the soul of differentiation. Differentiation is not just a clever marketing tactic. It is a biological necessity for the human brain to process information. And it is a tribal imperative for human society to find belonging.
Biological and tribal.
A truly charismatic brand, the kind of brand for which people genuinely believe there is no substitute, is born when a company has the courage to strip away everything it is not.
Stripping away everything it is not.
It focuses entirely on the unique, aesthetically pleasing difference that makes its specific tribe feel safe, understood, and at home. It's about being brave enough to zag when everyone else is zigging and having the absolute clarity to answer the question, why does it matter, without flinching.
I love that. It takes courage to say no. Well, now that you know exactly how to stand out, how to bypass the brain's filters, and how to find your specific tribe, the next challenge is actually building the cathedral to house them.
That's right.
Because, as you'll see, no one builds a brand alone in a vacuum. Next time, we're going to explore discipline 2. Collaborate and uncover why it takes an entire village, a synchronized team of specialists, to turn a brilliant strategy into a living, breathing reality.
It's going to be a good one.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Look around your home or your office right now. Look at the items on your desk, the apps on your phone, the clothes in your closet, the things you interact with every single day.
Take a really good look.
Ask yourself, which of these items are just interchangeable commodities, easily replaced by the next cheap alternative? And which of these are the little gods ruling your modern life, providing you with a sense of identity, status, and belonging?
It's a revealing question.
And more importantly, if you are building a business, which one are you trying to create?
So how on earth does 1 plus 1 actually equal 11?
Well, I mean, in traditional math, it's impossible. It's just complete nonsense.
Right. Like if my accountant tries to tell me 1 plus 1 is 11, I'm firing him on the spot.
Exactly, yeah. You'd have to.
But, in the world of brand building, if your math doesn't add up to 11, you're actually already falling behind.
It's sort of the ultimate paradox of modern business, isn't it?
It really is.
Because we are so deeply conditioned to think in terms of linear progression, like the whole factory mindset.
Right, where you just add parts together.
Exactly. You add one resource to another, say, one machine plus one worker, and you get a very predictable incremental sum.
Like 1 plus 1 equals 2.
Right. But when you're dealing with the architecture of a modern brand, that linear math completely breaks down.
It just doesn't apply anymore.
No, not at all. You aren't just adding resources to a pile. You're actually multiplying them through a very specific kind of interaction.
And that interaction is exactly what we're going to dissect today. So welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today's mission is to really pull apart the core concepts of Chapter 3, which is Discipline 2, Collaborate, from Marty Neumeier's whiteboard overview, The Brand Gap.
Yeah, and it's such a crucial chapter.
It really is. Like, if you are listening and you're interested in business, entrepreneurship, or even just how complex projects get off the ground, this is absolutely essential.
For sure.
Because today, you're going to learn why modern business strategy is, well, it's absolutely no longer a solo sport.
Not even close.
Right. And you'll see how orchestrating a network of specialized, highly creative minds is really the only way to build a brand that actually survives in today's marketplace.
And, I see my role here as helping you look under the hood a bit.
Yes, exactly. Getting into the detail.
Right, because we aren't just going to look at the tactical business moves Neumeier outlines on a surface level. We really need to explore the underlying why.
The mechanics of it all.
Exactly. We're going to connect these collaborative strategies to larger economic realities, human psychology, and the very nature of how complex systems evolve over time.
Which I think is the most fascinating part of this whole thing.
It is, because once you understand the actual mechanics of collaboration, like how it functions at a biological and economic level, you stop seeing it as just some corporate management buzzword.
Right. It's not just corporate synergy jargon.
Exactly. You start seeing it as a literal evolutionary necessity.
I love framing it that way, an evolutionary necessity.
Yeah.
Because to understand this hyper-modern concept of corporate collaboration, we actually have to look backward.
Way backward.
Yeah, far backward.
Yeah.
We need to look at nature and, surprisingly, we need to look at medieval architecture.
Which is a brilliant connection Neumeier makes.
Right. It seems like a strange place to start a discussion about modern branding, but he brings in the work of Jane Jacobs to make this point.
Yes, specifically looking at her book, The Nature of Economies.
Right.
And what Jacobs does, which is honestly brilliant, is she reframes how we think about economic development entirely.
Because usually we just think of development as growth.
Exactly. The common misconception is that economic development is just about expansion, getting bigger, more factories, more employees, more output.
Just scaling up the exact same thing.
Right. But she argues that true economic development actually mirrors evolutionary or embryological development in nature.
Okay, wait. Let's slow down and actually look at that biological comparison.
Sure.
When you say embryological development, I mean, you're talking about like how a single general cell in a womb divides, right?
Exactly that process.
And it eventually differentiates into completely different, highly specialized organs. Like you get a heart, a lung, a nervous system.
Right, from that one general starting point.
And then all of those wildly different organs have to somehow figure out how to work together to make a living organism actually survive.
That is the exact mechanism she's talking about. And the engine driving that, according to Jacobs, is what she calls co-development.
Co-development, meaning they develop together.
Exactly. No entity, whether it's a natural organism in an ecosystem or a business in an economic system, evolves in total isolation.
Right, because a lung doesn't just develop independently of the heart.
Exactly. Everything develops in response to and in concert with its environment and the other entities it interacts with.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it biology-wise.
And Neumeier takes this foundational biological and economic principle and applies it directly to branding.
Okay, so how does that translate?
Well, he's basically saying brands absolutely do not develop in a vacuum. A brand is the result of the interaction of thousands of people over a very long period of time.
Oh, I see. And he paints this incredibly vivid picture in the text to really illustrate this.
A cathedral metaphor.
Yes, he says that building a brand today is exactly like building a Renaissance cathedral.
Which is such a powerful image.
It really is. So let's really think about what that entails for a second.
Okay.
A Renaissance cathedral wasn't built by one brilliant guy with a hammer and a sketch pad.
No, it took hundreds of craftsmen.
Right.
It took scores of years, sometimes multiple generations, just to complete one building.
Because the work was so incredibly specialized.
Exactly. You had master stone carvers, intricate window makers, fresco painters, structural engineers, carpenters.
Just a massive variety of skills.
Yeah, and the person who designed the sweeping arches was absolutely not the same person who painstakingly painted the murals on the ceiling.
Right, they had completely different domains of genius.
Exactly. Each craftsman added their own highly specialized piece to the project, their own unique flavor. But they always kept an eye on what Neumeier calls the total effect.
Okay, and this is exactly where my alarm bells start ringing.
Uh-oh.
Why is that?
Well, I understand the romance of the cathedral metaphor. It sounds beautiful.
Here.
But let's translate this to like a Tuesday morning at a tech startup or a fast-moving consumer goods company.
Okay, bringing it to the real world. Right. Because if you have hundreds of different craftsmen, or in today's world, hundreds of different marketing specialists,
Yeah.
freelance graphic designers, PR firms, web developers,
All in the mix.
yeah, and each of them is adding their own distinct flavor to the project.
Yeah.
How does the brand not turn into a giant, messy Frankenstein monster?
Oh, well, that is the most common failure point for modern companies.
Because if I hire a brilliant, edgy graphic designer and then a highly conservative corporate PR team and a quirky social media manager,
And you just tell them all to collaborate.
yeah, they aren't going to build a cathedral. They're going to build something that looks like it was stitched together in the dark.
That's a very fair point.
So how do you actually keep that total effect in focus without completely stifling their individual creativity?
It's tough.
Because if you micromanage them, you lose the whole benefit of their specialization. But if you let them run free, you just get chaos.
You've hit on the central tension of collaboration right there.
It's the big paradox.
Yeah. How do you actually align highly specialized, autonomous experts? Exactly.
Well, Neumeier points to the insights of management guru Peter Drucker to explain this whole shift in how we must operate today.
Okay, what did Drucker say?
Drucker noted that the most significant shift in business is moving from ownership to partnership.
Ownership to partnership.
Right, and from completing individual tasks to true collaboration.
Let me push on that first part. Ownership to partnership.
Sure, unpack that.
Meaning, historically, like a Ford or a General Electric, they wanted to own every single part of their process.
Right, vertical integration.
Yeah. They wanted the designers, the engineers, the marketers, and the assembly line workers all sitting in the exact same building.
Drawing salaries from the same payroll.
Exactly. Operating under one massive corporate hierarchy.
That was the industrial model. You owned the talent outright.
But that doesn't work anymore. Well, Drucker recognized that the modern economy simply moves too fast.
Okay.
And it requires too much deep niche expertise for any one company to actually own all the best talent under its own roof.
So you have to let go of that control.
You do. Letting go of ownership means letting go of the ego-driven idea that your company's internal team is always the smartest group in the room for every conceivable problem.
Oh, that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of founders.
It really is. But the most successful modern company isn't the one with the smartest individual dictator at the top.
Right.
It's the one with the most brains acting in concert. It's about orchestration, not dictation.
Orchestration, I like that.
Yeah, and Neumeier explicitly states that over time, specialists beat generalists. He calls it the law of the jungle, survival of the fittingest.
The survival of the fittingest. Wow, that is such a fascinating twist on Darwin.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because it implies that it's not the biggest, strongest, or even the most well-funded brand that wins,
Not at all.
but rather the one that best adapts and fits into its specific hyper-niche space in the ecosystem.
Exactly. And to achieve that perfect fit, you just can't rely on a bunch of generalists who are merely okay at a lot of things.
Right, you can't be a jack of all trades.
You need a village of highly adapted specialists who are absolute world-class at one specific thing.
So for you listening, The practical takeaway here requires a massive paradigm shift in how you view your own career or your own business.
A total mindset change.
Right. You have to stop trying to be the lone genius.
It's a trap.
It really is. Like, if you are a founder or a manager and you're trying to dictate every single micro detail of a project.
If you're leaning over the designer's shoulder telling them to change a pixel.
Exactly. And then you're rewriting the copywriter's headlines and then micromanaging the supply chain. You are being a generalist in a world that demands specialized excellence.
Which is a guaranteed way to fail.
Right. Your real job as a modern brand builder is to curate specialists. Your job is to build the village that builds the cathedral.
Beautifully said.
Which naturally leads to the next massive hurdle we have to talk about.
Which is?
Well, we accept the premise, right? We know it takes a village of highly specialized craftsmen to build a brand cathedral.
Right. We're on board with that.
But how do we actually organize that village?
Yes. Logistics.
Yeah, because as I mentioned earlier, just throwing 100 opinionated specialists into a single room is just a recipe for a riot. We need a structure.
We do. And the structure of the collaboration is honestly just as critical as the talent of the collaborators.
Really? Just as critical?
Absolutely. Because if the architecture of your working relationship is flawed, all that brilliant talent is completely wasted.
Okay, so what are the structures? The source material outlines 3 basic models, right?
It does. It outlines 3 models that have evolved for managing this kind of large-scale brand collaboration. The first model, Neumeier details, is outsourcing the brand to a one-stop shop.
Ah, yes. The classic mega agency.
Yes. This is the path of least resistance for a whole lot of corporations.
Why is that?
Because you find a massive multinational agency that claims to do absolutely everything under the sun.
Right. Brand strategy, logo design, crisis PR, media buying, web development, event planning.
Exactly. And you simply hand the keys over to them.
See, I look at Model 1 sort of like hiring a general contractor to just build your whole house from scratch.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's incredibly easy for you as the client, right? You only have one point of contact.
One phone call to make.
Exactly. And frankly, one throat to choke if things go wrong.
Which corporate boards love.
They really do.
Yeah.
But here's the downside. While that general contractor might build a perfectly functional, completely safe house, it probably lacks a unique world-class edge.
That's the trade-off.
Because a one-stop shop is rarely the absolute best in the world in every single discipline.
Almost never.
They might have brilliant brand strategists, but maybe their web development team is just churning out cookie-cutter templates.
Exactly. You basically trade specialized excellence for administrative convenience.
Right.
The agency might be an A+ in television advertising, but a C- in digital user experience.
And you're stuck with that C-.
Right, because you bought the whole package.
Okay, so what's the next option?
So the second model is a step up. It's outsourcing to a brand agency.
A brand agency, okay.
In this model, you hire a strategic, specialized firm that acts basically as the lead architect.
Oh, I see.
They might do the core identity work themselves, like the logo, the messaging, the overarching brand positioning.
It's foundational stuff.
Right. But then they act as a manager, overseeing a variety of other brand building services across different media.
Oh, so they subcontract.
Exactly. They're the ones subcontracting out to other specialized firms.
So it's a bit more curated then.
It is.
The brand agency knows they aren't the best at everything, so they bring in ringers for specific tasks.
That's the idea.
But wait, from the client's perspective, the control still largely sits outside your own company, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Like you're trusting the brand agency to be an honest broker and actually pick the best subcontractors rather than just picking the cheapest ones to pad their own margins.
And that lack of internal control is the major vulnerability of the second model.
I can imagine.
Which brings us to the third model. And this is the one the text suggests is the overwhelming preference among advanced branders today.
Okay, drumroll.
It's the integrated marketing team.
Integrated marketing team. Okay, let's carry that earlier analogy forward to explain this.
Yeah, let's do it.
So if Model 1 is hiring the general contractor to build an average house,
right,
then Model 3 is like being the conductor of an all-star symphony orchestra.
Oh, perfect.
Right. You aren't just hiring the local municipal orchestra because they happen to already be sitting in the same room.
No, you're curating.
Exactly. You, the client, are handpicking the absolute best violinist from Vienna, the greatest cellist from Yo-Yo Ma's studio, the premier oboe player from London.
And you're bringing them all together on one stage.
Exactly.
The historical example the text actually provides for this is Susan Rockrise.
Oh, right, from Intel.
Yeah, she was the former worldwide creative director at Intel, and she basically pioneered what she called the virtual agency.
The virtual agency.
Right. She realized that to maintain Intel's absolute brand dominance in the tech sector, she could not just rely on a single traditional agency.
The stakes were just way too high.
Too high, and the required skill sets were too diverse.
Right.
So she had to actively recruit best-of-breed creative boutique firms from all around the globe and get them to play together on an all-star team.
Okay, wait, I need to stop you there because this honestly sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It's definitely not easy.
Right. Like, if I am the client, why on earth would I want to manage 15 different boutique agencies instead of just going back to Model 1 and making one easy phone call to a massive agency?
Because of the quality of the work.
But still,
Yeah.
if I have a boutique design firm in Tokyo, a specialized PR team in London, and a hardcore data analytics firm in New York, all working on my brand,
Yeah.
who is actually conducting this all-star symphony. If there are all independent elite firms, won't they just constantly fight over the creative director?
Oh, they absolutely will fight.
I knew it.
And that is exactly why a distributed, integrated marketing team requires incredibly strong, centralized internal management.
Oh.
If you try to run an all-star symphony without a master conductor standing at the podium, the text warns that creativity just quickly turns into uncontrolled, schizophrenic chaos.
Because everyone is just playing their own tune.
Exactly. The Tokyo team builds something that completely contradicts what the London team is saying to the press.
So how do you prevent that?
To prevent that, you need a very specific kind of internal visionary. And Neumeier introduces a critical executive role here called the Chief Brand Officer, or CBO.
The CBO. Now, that's not the Chief Executive Officer, right?
No, completely different.
And it's not the Chief Marketing Officer either.
The distinction is vital.
Okay, break it down for us.
Well, the CAO is managing the entire business apparatus.
Right.
The CMO is often deeply focused on, quarterly sales targets, customer acquisition costs, market share.
Oh, hard metrics.
Exactly. But the CBO is a rare executive who exists solely to bridge the brand gap internally.
So they are the bridge.
Right. Their entire mandate is to connect the left brain of the corporation. So that's the logic, the analytical business strategy, the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
With the right brain of the creative team, the magic, the intuitive design, the emotional customer experience.
Wow, so they literally have to be completely bilingual.
They absolutely do.
I mean, just think about what a CBO's Tuesday looks like.
It's wild.
At 9:00 a.m., they have to sit in a boardroom with a highly skeptical chief financial officer and somehow justify the multi-million-dollar ROI of a completely abstract, emotion-driven brand campaign.
They have to speak pure logic, metrics, and risk mitigation.
Exactly. And then 2 hours later, at 11:00 a.m., they have to walk into a design studio, sit down with a temperamental art director, and passionately debate the emotional resonance of a specific shade of blue on the new packaging.
And that duality is exactly why Neumeier describes CBOs as rare birds.
Rare birds, yeah.
The modern educational and corporate system is just not designed to produce them.
We usually specialize in one or the other.
Right. Most people are trained in one extreme. You either go to a prestigious business school to learn logic, supply chain management, and finance.
Yeah.
Or you go to a prestigious design school to learn magic, color theory, and human empathy.
But the CBO has to master the alchemy of combining both.
Exactly. They are the person who lies awake at night, not thinking about supply chains, not thinking about quarterly sales, but thinking exclusively, how can we build the brand?
How do I ensure the Tokyo team and the London team are actually building the same cathedral?
Precisely.
So for you listening, if you are building a business, you have to honestly evaluate which model fits your current scale.
Scale, budget, and internal capabilities.
Exactly. If you want the absolute best-in-class work, and if you truly want to dominate your industry, you should definitely aim for Model 3.
The integrated team.
Right, the virtual agency model.
Yeah.
But if you choose that path, you absolutely must have a strong internal visionary, a CBO figure to conduct the symphony.
It's non-negotiable.
Yeah, because if you try to run an integrated team of independent specialists without a strong CBO to translate between the left and right brains, you are basically just going to be paying premium boutique prices for total unmitigated chaos.
It is a very high-risk, high-reward model, honestly.
I could see that.
It requires a level of internal leadership that most companies just lack.
But when it works,
When it works, when the CBO effectively orchestrates those elite specialists, the speed and the quality of the output are entirely unmatched by traditional monolithic agencies.
okay, let's actually talk about that speed.
Sure.
Because on paper, this sounds slow.
I know, it does.
Like we know the models now. But in the real world, how fast can a highly specialized, decentralized network actually move?
It's a fair question.
Right. When you have multiple different agencies spread all across the world, all working independently, doesn't all the coordination, the time zone differences, and the endless email chains just slow everything down to a crawl?
Intuition would definitely tell you, yes, managing a network is slower than managing a single building full of employees.
It just seems like common sense.
But the reality of modern economics proves the exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah. To understand how this agility actually works, Neumeyer points us toward a McKinsey report on the future of the global economy.
Okay, what did McKinsey find?
The report details how the future of commerce belongs to what they call network organizations.
Network organizations.
Right. These are basically groups of unbundled companies deliberately cooperating across a value chain.
Unbundled companies. Let me make sure I'm translating this right for everyone.
Go ahead.
Instead of a massive bloated corporation trying to do everything themselves,
From manufacturing the raw materials to assembling the product.
right, writing the marketing copy to even owning the distribution trucks.
Exactly.
Instead of that, you have a fluid network of specialized independent companies seamlessly linking up to deliver the final product to the consumer.
That is the essence of unbundling, yeah. And the McKinsey report highlights exactly why this is vastly superior to the old industrial model.
Which is why.
Because it requires significantly less capital to start, it yields much higher revenues per employee, and crucially, it spreads risk across a volatile market.
Oh, that makes sense. Because if one node in the network fails,
Or if a specific technology just becomes obsolete overnight.
the central brand doesn't collapse.
Exactly. They simply swap in a new, specialized partner.
Wow.
But you know, the best blueprint for how this actually functions on a human level isn't found in a dry corporate case study.
Where is it found?
It's found in Hollywood.
Oh, the Hollywood model. Man, when I read this part of the source material, it completely changed how I look at business.
It is a profound paradigm shift, isn't it?
Really is.
Just think about the mechanics of how a major motion picture is actually made.
Okay.
A movie studio like Warner Bros. Or Universal doesn't just keep thousands of actors, lighting technicians, visionary directors, and elaborate set designers on a permanent, year-round payroll.
No, that would be financial suicide.
Exactly. Instead, for a specific project, say, a massive sci-fi blockbuster, they assemble a bespoke, top-notch team of highly specialized freelancers and boutique firms.
Right. They bring together the exact right visionary director who specializes in sci-fi.
Exactly.
And they cast the perfect lead actor for that specific script. And they hire the absolute best special effects house in New Zealand that specializes in rendering alien landscapes.
They basically build a temporary village.
I love that. Picture a live movie set, right?
Yeah.
You have catering trucks, lighting grips hanging from the rafters, sound engineers monitoring audio levels, makeup artists doing touch-ups, all swirling around the actors and the director.
And the magic is in the intensity of that temporary village.
Because it's temporary.
Right. They inspire this disparate group to work productively, passionately, and joyfully together for a few intense months of like 14-hour days.
Because they are all entirely focused on the total effect of the film.
Exactly. And then the moment the movie wraps, the village just disbands.
The team scatters to the wind.
Yeah. The lighting grip goes to work on a romantic comedy. The special effects house takes a contract for a video game.
They reassemble in completely different configurations for their next projects.
And Neumeyer quotes the playwright Noel Coward here, which I think is perfect.
What did he say?
He said, of this kind of intense, collaborative, creative work was more fun than fun.
Work was more fun than fun. That's awesome.
It's an intoxicating, high-energy way to operate.
And it eliminates the stagnation, right?
Yeah.
And all those deeply entrenched office politics of a permanent corporate bureaucracy.
Completely. And it's incredibly agile. You can pivot entirely for the next project without having to, fire thousands of permanent employees.
So the book actually gives a historical example of this Hollywood-style network organization operating in the corporate world with massive stakes.
Yes, it takes us back to Silicon Valley in the 1980s.
Let's set the stage for that because the context is just wild.
It was a very tense time.
Yeah. Back in the 80s, Silicon Valley was facing a massive existential threat from Japanese competitors.
Yay.
The Japanese tech firms were aggressively duplicating American microchip features, manufacturing them at incredible scale, and drastically undercutting American prices.
And the traditional corporate response to that, like the General Motors style response would have been to lock down.
Build massive walls,
Yeah.
try to do everything in-house to protect trade secrets.
Exactly, and just engage in a race to the bottom on price.
But Silicon Valley did the exact opposite.
They did. They realized they couldn't win a traditional manufacturing war of attrition.
So they used open collaboration.
Yes. They formed rapid network organizations. Different specialized firms handled the design, the architecture, and the manufacturing.
Oh, wow.
By cooperating across the value chain like that, they were able to produce ever more advanced systems at a pace the Japanese firms just couldn't match.
So they didn't beat the copycats by hiding their secrets?
No, they beat them by simply out-innovating them through networked brainpower. They moved faster than the copycats could copy.
That is so cool. And Neumeier provides a concrete first-hand scenario of this rapid innovation in action from a few years later, right? In the mid-90s.
Yes, the launch of Netscape Navigator.
Right. For those who might not remember the mid-90s tech scene, Netscape was the browser that essentially introduced the internet to the general public.
The stakes for that launch were astronomical.
Beyond massive.
The concept of the World Wide Web was just exploding, and whoever captured the browser market first was going to define the future of global computing.
First mover advantage was literally everything.
Exactly. And Neumeier's own design firm was part of the super team that was assembled to launch it.
Okay, so what was his role?
His specific firm was responsible for designing the icon and the retail packaging. You know, back when you actually bought software in a cardboard box at a store.
Oh man, the big cardboard boxes.
Right. But while Neumeier's team was trying to figure out what the box looked like, an ad agency was simultaneously writing the television commercials.
Oh, wow.
And a web design firm was building the promotional site, a PR group was pitching journalists, and an exhibit design firm was building the trade show booths.
So they're all working at the exact same time.
Neumeier calls this parallel processing.
Parallel processing.
Right. In the old industrial model, work happened on a linear assembly line. The software engineers would finish the product entirely.
Right, step one.
Then they would hand it to the packaging team.
Step two.
Once the packaging was done, they would hand it to the PR team to announce it.
Which takes years.
Exactly. But in parallel processing, everyone is working at the exact same time on a product that is literally still evolving.
That is crazy.
And it allowed Netscape to launch at warp speed. The company was formed in 1994. It went public in 1995 in one of the most famous IPOs in history, and it essentially changed the direction of human communication in a matter of months.
Okay, but this is the part that completely breaks my brain.
What's that?
If everyone is working in parallel, like if the PR team in New York is writing press releases about a product feature that isn't even finished yet,
Right.
while the packaging team in California is literally drawing the box for a software interface that the engineers might completely redesign tomorrow morning.
It sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. How on earth do they not constantly step on each other's toes? How do they make sure they're actually building the same brand?
That's a great question.
Because a weekly Zoom call or an endless email chain isn't going to fix that level of simultaneous chaos.
No, it won't. The answer isn't found in a spreadsheet. It isn't found in a status meeting.
So where is it?
Traditional corporate communication tools are just far too slow and too ambiguous for parallel processing. The secret to aligning a fast-moving network is actually found in a very specific type of creative communication.
Okay, lay it on us. What is the secret? How do we avoid the chaos?
Well, if we go back to our Hollywood model for a second, let's ask the same exact question.
Okay.
How does the lighting guy know what the set designer is building? How does the lead actor know what the director wants the scene to feel like?
They don't have weekly status meetings?
No, they don't. They rely on two foundational documents: the script and the storyboards.
Yeah.
That is their shared universal language. In corporate brand building, the equivalent of the Hollywood script is the creative brief.
Got it.
But the equivalent of the visual storyboard, the thing that actually aligns everyone's actions, is the prototype.
A prototype. So we're talking about like a mock-up, A rough draft, a wireframe, a quick sketch on a napkin.
Precisely. Newmeyer brings in a brilliant concept from Tom Kelly here.
From IDEO, right.
Yeah, Kelly was a partner at IDEO, the legendary industrial design firm responsible for things like the first Apple mouse.
Oh, wow.
And Kelly says that prototypes, regardless of how rough they are, provide a near-life experience.
A near-life experience. I absolutely love that phrasing. It explains so much.
It really does. It means that a prototype allows everyone in the decentralized network, from the summer intern to the CEO, from the PR firm in New York to the packaging firm in San Francisco, to instantly, viscerally sense if a concept is actually going to work in the real world.
Because a memo just describes an idea.
Exactly, but a prototype lets you interact with it.
Okay, let me try an analogy here, because this reminds me a lot of how musicians collaborate.
Oh, I'd love to hear this.
It's like trying to explain a new song you've written to your bandmates.
Okay.
You could write a dense, 10-page technical memo describing the tempo, the specific chord progression, the lyrical themes, and the emotional resonance you are hoping to achieve.
Good luck with that.
Right. You could even hand them the mathematically perfect raw sheet music.
Hmm.
But unless they are classically trained composers, they're just going to stare at that paper blankly.
Because it's totally abstract.
Exactly. Versus you just sitting down and playing a rough, messy, unpolished demo of the song on a cheap acoustic guitar. Suddenly, instantly, they get it. The drummer knows exactly what beat to play.
Because the prototype, the acoustic demo, lets them actually feel the idea.
Yeah. As the book so beautifully puts it, a prototype lets gut feeling talk to gut feeling.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and it captures the exact mechanism of why prototypes actually work.
It just cuts through the noise.
It does. You cannot arm wave a brand into existence. You cannot dictate a brand culture through a 40-page corporate memo. Words are just too easily misinterpreted.
Right. If I say edgy, the PR team might think that means slightly controversial.
While the design team thinks it means neon green and black.
Exactly.
The prototype eliminates that ambiguity. You have to build it, even in a very rough, incomplete state.
Like a cardboard mock-up of a product.
Yeah, or a few designed sample screens of an app just so that people can react to it.
You know, the practical application of this for anyone listening who manages projects, leads teams, or is trying to get a startup off the ground is just massive.
It's a game changer.
Stop relying on endless talking. Stop writing massive strategy documents that no one actually reads and everyone interprets differently.
Build a rough, tangible version of your idea.
Exactly. If you want to pitch a new marketing campaign, don't just talk about the vibe. Make a quick, dirty mood board.
Cut together a fake commercial using stock footage.
Yes. Use the prototype to cut through the marketing red tape, bypass the endless debates, and align your specialized network instantly.
And the incredible thing is, when you actually implement this, when you use prototypes to get your highly specialized Hollywood-style network collaborating effectively under the guidance of a visionary CBO,
Yeah.
something structural happens to the trajectory of your entire business. You don't just win a marketing award. You basically escape the gravitational pull of traditional economic competition.
Which brings us to the final, most consequential idea of the chapter.
The big finish.
This is the synthesis of everything we've talked about.
Right.
Newmeyer calls it bridging logic and magic, which leads to the virtuous circle.
Right. If we pull all the way back and look at the macro picture, the ultimate goal of all this collaboration, all these unbundled network organizations, all these acoustic guitar prototypes is singular. To get the left-brainers and the right-brainers working as a unified team. It is about permanently bridging the gap between the logic of the business strategy and the magic of the customer experience.
Because when you fail to bridge that gap, you end up trapped in what he calls the vicious circle.
A very dangerous place to be.
So let's break down the vicious circle first, so you listening understand the sheer stakes of what happens if you ignore collaboration. We need to know what we're trying to avoid here.
Okay, so the vicious circle is, sadly, the default state of most industries.
How does it start?
Here's how it plays out. A company invests heavily in R&D and creates a technologically decent, logical product.
Okay.
They achieve some initial market success based purely on utility. But because the product lacks that right brain magic, because it doesn't have a charismatic, emotionally resonant brand attached to it.
Competitors immediately swoop in and duplicate the features.
Exactly.
Just like what Silicon Valley was facing in the 80s with the Japanese manufacturers, someone else figures out how to make the exact same microchip or the exact same software tool.
Exactly. So what is the inevitable next step?
They panic.
Well, Competitive pressure mounts. Since the products in the marketplace are now practically identical in function, the consumer has absolutely no emotional reason to choose one over the other.
Right.
So the only way for a company to win a sale is to lower the price.
Oh, man.
This leads to aggressive, industry-wide price cutting, which leads to the most terrifying word in business.
Commoditization.
Commoditization.
Let's make sure that term is crystal clear. Think about buying a standard USB charging cable on Amazon.
The perfect example.
You do not care what brand it is. You don't care about their mission statement. You just search USB cable and you buy the absolute cheapest one that has decent reviews.
That is commoditization in a nutshell.
The product has been stripped of all magic, all brand identity, and the only weapon the companies have left is a brutal price war.
And in a price war, nobody really wins.
No.
The product is just a cheap commodity, profit margins become razor thin, and eventually the original company gets forced out of the market entirely because they no longer have the profit margins to afford further innovation.
They basically just bleed to death.
They bleed to death. That is the vicious circle.
It's a relentless race to the bottom. But branding specifically, this highly collaborative, prototype-driven, Hollywood-style branding we've been discussing, creates the exact opposite economic effect.
It creates the virtuous circle.
Let's walk through this upward spiral because this is where the math finally changes.
The virtuous circle begins with successful collaboration. By orchestrating a network of specialists to combine logic and magic strategic utility with breathtaking design and emotional resonance, a company achieves true differentiation.
They stand out.
They don't just blend in, they stand out distinctly in the mind of the customer.
Right. And because they are highly differentiated, and because people feel a gut-level magical connection to the brand, the company can suddenly charge a premium.
They aren't competing on price anymore.
No. Nobody buys an Apple product because it's the cheapest computer on the market. They buy it because of the magic.
Exactly. And when you can command higher prices without losing customers, that creates significantly larger profit margins.
And with those larger profit margins, the company now sits on a war chest of abundant resources and capital.
Which they don't just pocket, ideally.
Right.
They take those abundant resources and they reinvest them into further radical innovation. They hire even better specialists, they form tighter network organizations, and they create even better products and magical experiences.
Which loops us right back to the beginning of the spiral, right? That new innovation creates even further, deeper differentiation.
It's an unstoppable upward trajectory.
You're constantly moving further away from the threat of commoditization, further away from the price wars, and closer to a permanent, sustainable, competitive advantage.
That is literally the holy grail of modern commerce, and it is only achievable when you stop treating collaboration as some soft HR concept and start treating it as the core engine of your economic strategy.
So, bringing this all home, what does this deep dive ultimately mean for you, the listener?
It all connects back.
It means we have finally solved the riddle from our hook. When you align specialized minds, when you empower a central visionary to conduct the symphony, when left-brain logic truly meets right-brain magic through managed, prototype-driven collaboration.
The outcome is no longer linear.
No, the resources don't just add to each other, they multiply each other. The total effect is infinitely greater than the sum of the individual parts.
1 + 1 truly does equal 11.
If I did synthesize the soul of this entire chapter into one thought, it is this: building a modern brand, building anything of lasting value in today's economy, is absolutely not a solo endeavor.
It is the careful orchestration of specialized minds.
By adopting the Hollywood model of temporary, highly skilled teams, by guiding them with a CBO, and by using prototypes to let gut feeling talk to gut feeling, you aren't just cobbling together a product.
You're building a cathedral.
And if you build it right, it will stand the test of time.
It really changes how you look at the world around you, honestly. Next time you interact with a brand you love, realize you aren't looking at a monolith. You are looking at the result of a massive, perfectly coordinated symphony of specialists.
Absolutely. Now, once you've got your all-star Hollywood-style team working in perfect harmony, what exactly are they going to build?
That's the next big question.
Next time on the deep dive, we'll see why doing what everyone else is doing is the most dangerous, financially ruinous move you can possibly make, as we explore Neumeier's Discipline 3, Innovate.
But before you go, I want to leave you with something to chew on.
Lay it on us.
If the most successful, agile, modern brands act like Hollywood movie crews, constantly disbanding, scattering to the wind, And reassembling for specific projects, what happens to the memory of a brand when the people who physically built it move on?
Well, that's a great question.
Right. In a world of temporary collaborations and virtual agencies, how does a company actually retain its magic when the magicians leave the building? Something to think about.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.